I'd like to call the meeting to order this evening. This is a regularly scheduled, called and convened Greer City Council meeting held July 25th, 2023. Having called the meeting to order, I'd like to ask Councilman Corian Booker, if he would, to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance and then an invocation for council.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you, God, for this time tonight on this beautiful Sunday evening to gather together as council body, Father. Lord, we ask you just to be amongst us today, Father, that we be mindful of the decisions we make tonight, Father. Let it be fair and equitable for all of those that we represent here in this city, Father. Lord, we don't want to forget about the ones that may not have as much as some of us have, and the blessings that we have to do the things that we want to do sometimes. And Father, Lord, we just continue to ask your Spirit to cover this city, cover this council, cover our constituents. And Lord, we just thank you for everything you're doing in the city of Greer. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
With that, we'd like to turn our attention to public forum. Public forum is a time that we set aside at the beginning of each meeting to allow citizens of the city to come and to address council in regards to items that will appear on the agenda that evening. We have 5 people to appear this evening. According to the rules for our public forum, you'll be afforded 3 minutes to speak in regards to the item that you'd like to address. We limit that to a total of 30 minutes, but it doesn't appear that we're going to approach that time limit tonight. To help you in regards to the 3 minutes, at the 2-minute mark, I'll hold up a yellow piece of paper. That'll mean that you've got 1 minute left to speak. And at the 3-minute marker, a red sheet that will indicate your time is up. Please be cognizant of the other speakers as you share information with us, and also with the time that you'll have this evening. Also in that regard, as you come to the podium, we'll ask you to state your name and your address as a matter of record. It's easier to do it there, and we'll have it recorded for future meetings and for our attempt to keep these meetings public in the different ways that we do that. So with that, first signer this evening is Kendra Zimmerman.
Good evening. Oh, wrong one. Thank you. Obviously my first time doing this. Okay. All right. Okay, so my name is Kendra Zimmerman. I live at 107 Poplar Drive. I'm a relatively new arrival to Greer. I arrived summer of 2021. Very thankful to be here. I am a first-time homeowner. I'm part of the younger generation that is starting businesses and raising families here in the upstate. My concern regards the Victor property. While I don't disagree with the sale of things per se, and thank you very much, Mr. Hopper, for what you shared on social media. That cleared some things up for me. My concern is more long-term. 2 concerns, actually. Zoning is one of them. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to evolve. I've been in the upstate continuously since 2009. I've been involved in the arts. I'm a music teacher. I've spent a lot of time in the Pendleton Arts District, and anybody who's been here that long knows how that area has evolved. My concern is that a lot of these neighborhoods, such as parts of the Pendleton Arts District and elsewhere, have been progressively bought up little by little, these single-family homes by developers, and turned into flashy, essentially luxury real estate and mixed use. I bought in Greer with great excitement for the beauty that I see that's kind of a mix of growing but also kind of a small town feel. I look forward to contributing to this community on a long-term basis, but the changing face of Western Greenville is not exactly what I was going for when I moved here. So I'm just a little concerned like what the long-term plan is, because that is not that far from my house. Is the city gonna creep out that way? What's it gonna look like in 10 years? Two, and I'm not saying that our council is not doing this. I know that you guys serve because you love this community, okay? I say that with respect. But please keep in mind that the small decisions that we make, as I tell my students today, impact years down the road, and you know that. Anybody who's been following Greenville Young Professionals may have seen the situation of the lady homeowner, Linda Hill, whose home was next to an area that was being developed by townhomes. And they hit her sewage, one of the sewage pipes there when they put in fencing. She has been trying to get it addressed via lawyers and the city for 5 years, has been unable to do her laundry and various other things without things seeping in. And the city has just, her house has been condemned. And she needs $15,000 to remedy that situation because there's a sinkhole developing next door. So we're looking at a situation where the lower income, albeit homeowners, are being pushed out by the newer developments. And I'm not saying that new is bad and we need to keep everything the way it is. This city has changed a lot and I'm glad to be here. But I'm just concerned. I love my neighbors and I love what I see, and I just want it to, for everyone to have a chance to thrive, including my current neighbors. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker is Andrew Love.
Thank you. Andrew Love. I'm 301 Indian Trail. So I'm Andrew Love. I'm the executive director of the Gatos Touch Rugby Club. We operate in Greer. We're a relatively new club. And we play a non-contact variation of rugby, which is nice for older folks like me. I've had enough injuries. And I would just like to ask for a couple of considerations with regards to Turner Field as it relates to the potential sale of Victor Park. So the Gatos Touch Rugby Club has built a welcoming environment for folks with, from many walks of life. We've got a lot of age, wide age range. We have a lot of different career paths, genders, and also experience with rugby. We've got new folks every week. And then we also have people like me who are excited to get out and get a chance to run again without, tearing your ACL and things like that. And my wife and I are really excited to be a part of this organization. We use Turner Field on Saturday mornings for our sessions. We do about an hour of skills and fitness, followed by an hour of scrimmage. And we really hope to be able to grow to be able to run 2 concurrent matches at the same time and be able to do like round robins and things like that. For reference, touch rugby field is 50 meters wide by 90 meters long. And as Turner Field is right now, we can have 2 fields adjacent to each other. So with regards to considerations for Turner, I would like to ask that, non-stick and ball sports be considered with potential updates to Turner Field as it relates to moving softball over to there. I think we could share the space effectively with just a little bit of planning. First, we could consider space at Rotary Park for a softball field. If incorporating softball back into a large area, if we could avoid using outfield fences and foul fences and things like that, it would help to break up that space so that like people want to play soccer and things like that can use it. Consider a grass or turf infield for softball areas if at all possible. I know we usually use dirt, but it'd be nice if we could keep grass for folks running around out there. One of the other things is if we're increasing the use of the park, if we can make sure the bathrooms, if we could put remote locks on those so that they could be available to people to use without someone having to come unlock them. And a big part of that is also access to cool water. It's been really hot this summer, and we've been doing what we can to keep people cool and provide shade, but it's really been a little bit of a challenge this year. It's exceptionally hot out there. And so a shade structure would also be really nice if we're making the investment in the space, something near the parking areas or something like that for people who are out there running around in the heat. So that was my main thing. Just want to make sure that as we talk about potential changes to Turner Park, just make sure we have some consideration for non-softball related activities out there. So I really like to thank the city for the use of the space and for your time this evening. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is, looks like Brianna Krabowski.
Hello, I'm Brianna Krabowski. I live at 113 Carolina Avenue. First, I want to say that thank you to all of you who actually want to do this. I know it's a hard job, and especially when people come up here and tell you everything that you're doing wrong. I do appreciate you taking the time to do it. Now, my first question is that what are your plans for Turner Park? I'm also one of those people that uses it pretty consistently. My house is a block and a half from Turner Park. An aerial view of Turner Park from before showed that it had some backstops like Andrew was talking about, one on each side. I'm a member of the Greenville Gattos touch rugby team. And also being a person who lives there, every day I see it being used by the residents of our neighborhood and others in the community. I've seen people practicing disc golf, playing with their dogs, picnicking with their kids, playing pickup soccer, football, touch rugby, and participating in group fitness activities. There are very few non-gated, fully public access, field-sized parks available to Greer residents, especially adult residents. While I applaud Greer for its abundance of youth programming, Greer offers no field sports for adults. Adult residents of Greer are left to facilitate their own recreation and find space to do so. Turner Park is one of those spaces that offers a large multi-purpose space. Sports-specific fields that Greer owns are kept under lock and key. Country Club Park, Greer Stadium, and the Super Park Soccer Complex are all locked and fenced. You may say Greer Parks and Recs would work with adults teams to help facilitate the use of these fields. However, they cost money, and from my experience, this Greer Parks and Rec places youth sports potential over adult sports who are actually scheduled. I used to be the match secretary for the Carolina Villains Women's Rugby Club. When I tried to get Country Club Park, I was told that it needed to be left available in case there was youth rugby going to happen on any of the days that we might have games. So back to Turner Park. Turner Park offers a space for myself and other tax-paying citizens of Greer, a free and accessible area to participate in the recreation that we love. Our multi-purpose mixed-use neighborhood parks are vital to healthy neighborhoods. My wife and I bought our house because of the proximity to Turner Park. We loved how much that we could just walk out our door, walk a block and a half, and have this huge field that we could, like I said, play with our dog, play touch rugby, get our friends out. We do some of those fitness things. We used to host a Monday night fitness where we'd get people coming in, other adults from the area to get fit. Like Andrew said, I feel like there could be a happy medium to replacing the baseball field at Victor Park with something that would work for all the parties involved and allow it to become even more of a multi-use space rather than a single-use softball baseball field. Thank you.
Thank you. You might have to help me. Shane Christine? share?
Sherry Casano.
Sherry, thank you. I'm going to have to ask people to start printing, I guess.
Hi, my name is Sherry Casano, 100 Cascade Drive, Greer. My concern is Victor Park. I'm concerned about the kids that play there. I would like to suggest that you perhaps build something before you tear that down. I've been involved with a lot of teenage kids in this area, and I know that the children are going to be upset. They're going to get in trouble because they're going to be angry that you took the space away from them. And I really, if I had a young child, I would not want my child riding a bike or walking to a place a mile, 2 miles away. So that's my primary concern. And I think that anybody that has children that play there should be aware of that. That's pretty much it. Oh, one other question. Is it going to be townhouses, or what exactly is the proposal that you're building there? I've heard 3 different things, so I don't know. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And our last speaker is Kate DeVoe. DeVette.
My name is Kathleen, or Kate DeVix. I own a townhome at 134 Park Avenue, right behind Victor Park. I too bought, excited to have a park that close for basketball and other things. I understand we're here tonight and you're on second consideration and final approval of the sale of this property. And the issues that you're probably most concerned with are the legality of the sale and following all the steps you have to go through. My question is, what opportunities the owners, townhome or other property owners in the vicinity of the park are going to have to talk with the developer during the process leading through permitting and up to final development? For instance, an opportunity to make sure and be involved in discussions about adequate infrastructure, not just the roads and the traffic studies, but also schools. I had a teacher comment to me as I walked up to the meeting tonight that she has no idea where all those children are going to be able to go to school that we can anticipate having as this city gets so densely filled. Also, discussion about why, if only multifamily residential housing has been approved, why that has been done rather than involving mixed use or some pocket parks or some other things in the development plan. And then third, health and safety of the residents and the quality of our town. And this includes the health and safety issues raised by the railroads that come through this town. That was started really because of railroads. It now has 24/7 railroad traffic, and we know there was a death earlier this year. But if we're going to be working on infrastructure, I think as residents, we want to see the city putting money to the infrastructure needed to create a quiet zone and to adequately protect pedestrian and traffic safety in terms of the railroad tracks and the noise they create, which does make sitting out to dinner and having your conversation cut short or listening to train noise at 2:30 and 5:30 in the morning when you have to get up the next morning. And so I would ask you to kind of address those issues, if not tonight, in discussions coming up, and also discuss tonight what notice residents will have. Is that the 3-minute sign, sir?
One more minute, please.
One more. What notice will be given within what radius of people that own homes around the park? And again, going to the zoning issue, is that a final ruling on zoning, that it's just going to be multifamily housing, which I would take to mean apartments, because usually townhomes are considered single-family attached. I don't know if they're considered here multifamily here. But I think all the homeowners around the park need to be able to have discussion with the developers, appreciating their concerns, but also being able to voice ours and speak with you about them. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That concludes the public forum, and just as a matter of clarification, I know there were a couple of questions that were asked. During public forum, it's a time for citizens to address us with their concerns. Certainly raising a question is perfectly valid. That may be something that we can address during our conversation, but we do not use that time in public forum to reply directly to a question in regards to the presentation being made by someone in regards to the public forum. So with that, we'll draw that to a close, and we will move to the minutes of the council meeting from July 11th, 2023. I'll entertain a motion that they be received.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any items of note for the clerk? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council departmental reports are contained in your packet. You can get information in regards to that activity report from the administrator or department head. And we're joined by Ms. Howell this evening for for a financial update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, I'll be giving you the results of our fiscal year end, June 30th, 2023. Keep in mind, this is operational results only at this point right now. We'll still have accrual, audit entries, transfers, and those things before we actually have a final numbers for June. So with that, I'll start with the general fund. The year-to-date revenue is $40,768,000. Our total expenditures are $40,316,000, and the cash balance in the general fund is $21,709,000. Moving on to the hospitality fund, the year-to-date revenue is $3,555,000, which is 16% over revenue, 60% over budget, and the total expenditures are $2,616,000. The cash balance in the hospitality fund is $2,583,000. Finally, the storm fund. The stormwater fund, the year-to-date revenue is $1,614,000. The total expenditures are $839,000, and the cash balance in the stormwater fund is $2,993,000. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Council, floor is open for discussion or questions. Hearing none, we appreciate the report. Thank you, ma'am. With that, we will move forward with the administrator's report.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you very much. The only thing I wanted to mention tonight from a report standpoint is I want to offer congratulations to our 10U baseball state champs, the Dixie U state champs. Won that, I believe it was last weekend, this last weekend. They will be playing next week in Louisiana for the national championships. So this is the first time that we've done that since, gosh, it's been 15, 16 years. So congratulations to those kids. That concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Well, it's pretty important to recognize those
That's
kids.
what I thought.
Council, with that, we'll move to items of old business. Only one appears on our agenda this evening, the second and final reading of ordinance number 21-2023. This is an ordinance authorizing the conveyance of any and all interest in certain real estate property in the city of Greer. Entertain a motion for the purpose of discussion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion.
I know that a couple of issues were addressed by the ones that spoke, like what the plans are, when this is sold, what will be there. I know we've talked about Turner Field, money being put there. I think some of the issues also might be as others mentioned, about where they the kids or whatever, middle age or whatever, go play basketball there, about what will take place with that, and definitely what will take place with the gym. I know there's several activities that go on there, as far as the creative learning, I think it is, Mr. Dudley does. And I believe the Greer Senior, don't they meet there also? Yeah. So just wondering what will be done with those and how will that be handled?
Yeah, so, Ms. Albert, thank you. Just by way of just a general comment, this under y'all's consideration tonight is the purchase and sale agreement. The purchase and sale agreement effectively begins the due diligence process, which according to what we've agreed to under this agreement, kicks off a period of negotiations on a development agreement. This purchase and sale agreement is not binding until there has been a development agreement that is mutually agreed upon by both parties. We have until the end of September 28th, to come to terms on a development agreement. And a number of those specific development questions will be addressed through these negotiations. So the other part of that is under the assumption that the development agreement is passed, there's also roughly 300 days of due diligence that is required of the developer, about 120 days for them to do all of the questions that I think have come up specific to railroad right-of-way, specific to addressing infrastructure, a number of those due diligence things that any developer would look into when they're buying a piece of property. There's also another subsequent 120-day period that is part of their entitlement process, which would be zoning, which would be land disturbance, the permitting process, all of those other things, and then another 60 days in which we have to close. So this is the first step of that long process to begin the consideration for development of this property. And in that amount of time, any number of things can happen. So this is that good faith first start. To answer your question, we recognize that we are within, I think, 2 weeks maybe of putting Turner Field out to bid to get some prices for that, but this council did budget for that in this fiscal year. We've also identified property actually about 1,900 feet away where we could potentially relocate the basketball courts, so to keep those courts in the community. The gym itself is overused and underserves our community from a programming standpoint. It is used 7 days a week, 12 months out of the year. And so we are actively working on a plan to relocate and expand those gym facilities into a larger sports and events center. But those are, we're in various stages of negotiations with getting us to a point where we can make a formal announcement of that. So to answer your question, just from a broad standpoint, our intention and our plan moving forward is to accommodate those uses that are currently on that site in other facilities, and we're working on those agreements to ensure that those continue to take place.
Mr. Merriman, I know you and I have talked extensively about this over the last couple of weeks. And even hearing that explanation now, what I'm hearing from you is that we are committed to replacing the facilities that are going to be lost within the community, transitioning the facilities, maybe would be even a better way to say that, and making sure programming is not eliminated, not disrupted, but for the purpose of expanding and enhancing programming, even in the meantime. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, Mr. Hopper, yes, sir. That's and this council, and we've discussed this a number of times, is that our Parks and Rec and tourism programming is second to none. We have the finest Parks and Rec staff in the state, and I'll put them up against anybody in the Southeast. And so they bend over backwards to ensure that all of our citizens have facilities, and they spend a lot of gold out of straw, proverbially speaking, in ensuring that those things happen. So this is not on our part as a city an effort to remove an amenity from our citizens, but actually enhance what we've got. We have kids in this city that are on waiting lists, that are city residents that are on waiting lists to play basketball. And these are just our children. And what I heard tonight from the adults in the room resonates because, you know, we're serving a broad swath of folks. So we can't continue to program in a facility that cannot accommodate our needs. And so this has been something ongoing. The timing of this is not ideal in as much as I would like to have built the facility first, but this is a tremendous opportunity for the city to return that revenue back into our infrastructure, be that infrastructure in vertical facilities, in regular infrastructure, as it were, with roads or pedestrian improvements, et cetera. All of that stuff will flesh out through this process. So we are working diligently to ensure that those programs that we are so proud of are going to continue to serve our community.
Hey, Andy, right before I came back in, I had a resident, I believe he's a constituent of mine as well, hand me a letter that kind of eloquently and details his concerns for the Victor Gym facility in regards to the children and how, you know, some of that programming might be disrupted. Can you speak to our commitment to making that transition?
Absolutely. You know, I mentioned specifically basketball as an example of an indoor sport, but even our summer camp fills up within 15 minutes to 30 minutes of it opening. So we're already underserving those kids. We have got to do better about providing those resources for those kids. We have, you know, this is not hyperbole. This is an utter commitment from our staff that does the recreation side of our house with those senior programs, with those youth programs, are utterly committed to ensuring that this continues. So we're working with our community partners to find facilities that will accommodate the needs of those kids. The good part about this, again, as I will reiterate, is the purchase and sale agreement launches a 300-day due diligence process in which we have to come to terms on a development agreement. I think that optimistically, we will come to terms on a development agreement and the end product will be something that everyone will be pleased with. All the concerns that I heard this evening are valid and quite frankly have been concerns at a staff level that we've batted around. So we're aware of these issues. But from a timing perspective, we also look at we know that we've created an attractive nuisance in downtown Greer. People want to be here, and I can't blame them. And so as we continue to look at our future land use planning, making sure that our infrastructure can handle the growth and development, this level of density and type of development is appropriate for the urban center that we are developing.
I think it might be appropriate for you to touch on as well the fact that we have looked at a lot of alternatives, including adaptive reuse of that building, a building nearly 50 years old with a tile floor. Wasn't air conditioned until we acquired it. When it was built, had one gas heater in it. The second floor of that building was constructed by men from the church, so we don't even know whether or not the life of that is. The old school that was on that site is buried there in the parking lot. Might want to touch on the fact that all of those factors were included in trying to ascertain some value to a readaptive use.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate you reminding me of that. I think that is an important component of this because if we were to leave the property, the 4.5, 5 acres actively as a part of our recreation program, something would have had to have given. It would have been the outdoor basketball courts, it could have been the ball field, but in order to effectuate the kind of indoor recreation facility that we would approach needing, those two would have had to have gone, and then we would have had to raise the building and redevelop. So we would have had to answer this question regardless. And to put the size facility on that site that we would need to accommodate our recreation needs and the requisite parking it was going to be a challenge, if not impossible, which probably would have required us trying to acquire adjacent property. So the redevelopment of that site was considered and actually conceptually kind of played around with, but we would have been having this conversation regardless, because something would have had to have been moved and relocated in order to put the gym there.
So having visited the past, let's visit the future right quick, because this council has made a commitment to ensuring future use of recreation facilities throughout the community, something that we want to do in every district. We have plans in that regard. We have plans to add sizable fields and acreage that is not pie in the sky at this point, and a couple of other things. You might want to just touch on that as well, as this is just a fraction of what we plan to do over the next 5 to 10 years for our recreation here in the city.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think that it is important just to touch on first of all, the number of projects that we have going on in the city that are not specific to recreation. But recreation alone, this council acquired 18 months ago or so approximately 75 acres over the corner of Gap Creek and Country Club Road, most of which will be permanently left in an easement to allow for open space and outdoor activities. We are working to connect and have identified funding Country Club Park underneath Country Club Road, so we've got an outdoor trail system out there. We've attained a grant and funding to begin the work on the Wards Creek Trail project that will significantly enhance recreational opportunities in our Sunnyside community. We are we've done a master plan and hope to at some point expand our facilities at Suber Road, at South Suber Road Park. Not to mention what we're hoping to achieve out here at Turner. And then, of course, a much larger sports and event center that we're looking to begin that will accommodate all of our recreation and sports tourism needs.
Thank you, sir.
How far down the road are we with the Turner planning? I know there's a lot of concern that rugby and the like won't be able to be done there anymore. Is that true?
Well, the rugby, as we initially put it out there, when we initially had looked at Turner as the rugby pitch that we were going to develop, as a full-size pitch, no, it won't accommodate out there. The plans are done. We're ready to go to construct. The construction drawings are done. We're ready to go to bid on that plan. But that is accommodating that open space raw field need is something that we can certainly discuss with Parks and Rec staff and try and find some flex space or open space for those folks. So we're there when it comes to Turner being ready to go. And I think it's remiss, and it might be a little premature, but it is important to note that on tonight's agenda, your first item of new business, second item of new business is an agreement with the South Carolina Parks and Recreation Department that we take half of the proceeds of the sale and put it towards the construction of the new facility at Turner. So again, that idea of putting it back into the infrastructure is going to be effectuated in this action y'all would take tonight.
But there's some concern expressed that I saw about restroom facilities and parking. I know you and I have spoken about that, but it may be worth addressing. This is going to improve that facility greatly.
Tremendously.
In terms of all of the amenities, the parking situation.
Yes, we will. We're working under this plan to get parking off of the streets. Now we will, hopefully the event's big enough, we have to do some on-street parking. Certainly Virginia is wide enough to accommodate that. We have restroom facilities designed for that park as well. So I'm gonna tell you what, this council has been very clear with staff that we're not gonna do anything second rate. And we intend to turn Turner and replace Victor with Turner with a first-rate facility. And it will include that off-street parking and restroom facilities.
Forgive me for not envisioning this off the top of my head. I hear good feedback about, potential loss of some uses there. Is there any possibility of giving something to that community, that particular area, such as a playground area or that type of thing? What would be the possibility in that regard?
Well, we did, one of the initial plans did have a playground on it, on the facility, just a playground as well. But that's one of those things that we just need to look at when the final bids come in to ensure that we've got the money in there. And I think we'll be fine. I'm assuming we're going to be fine on that. I'm not going to jump out in front of Ann because she'll beat me with a stick later. But I do want to say that we do, and Ann may very well know the answer to this, but we need to figure out how to accommodate that open space, raw land, flex space area. But I can't speak right off the top of my head what's out there immediately.
We need to be mindful as well, too, that CPW owns and acquires anything they can in that area for their lay-down yards and storage of various different components they use in their electrical system as well, too. So, others? Questions, comments?
During that 300 period of due diligence, the property will all remain like it is and in use like it is, serviceable and
Yes,
all
ma'am.
that. So everything will stay the same during that time period.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I think that's the vital part.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, as a point of information, I know one speaker tonight, who I believe lives off Park Street, was talking about infrastructure and their the residents' ability to have input, that kind of thing. As this whole process moves forward, there's a lot of hurdles that have to be cleared by anyone who wants to buy this property. We're dealing with the railroad, and that kind of got my ears up when you mentioned the railroad. Yes, the railroad it's here, and it's here. And there are issues that whoever purchases and develops that property will have to deal with the railroad. It's just, I won't go into the details, but they have to deal with the railroad. And we have no ability, or we don't have any authority to tell the railroad to do anything. Now, there was a comment about schools and the crowding and stuff like that. During the development process, the developer is brought in at a meeting, and it's a PAC meeting, where everybody involved from our city, the departments in our city, folks who provide the utilities, in this particular case be CPW, school districts, everybody. The whole plan is laid out with the statistical numbers of folks that are going to be there, you know, a lot of the information that we probably would just gloss over, but, you know, how much water they may use, how the electrical consumption, that kind of thing. And everyone at that table has the ability to stop and say, oh, hold on, that's a problem. As far as the schools go, they have that ability to say, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem. And as far as I know, because I monitor these things that are going on, is the school districts, they've never said we have a problem. So we don't control the school districts, but we try to get all that information out there for those folks. When it comes to the zoning, there'll be public hearings about zoning, that kind of thing, and when it comes to the zoning, there will be signage placed around. It will be on our website as to the date and the time, that kind of thing, and you are afforded a time to speak at that zoning hearing. So there's right now, I've heard a lot of comments, we sold the property. Well, no, we're a long ways from that, and I can tell you by experience, and I hope this doesn't happen, but due diligence, this 300 days, it's a long time for issues to arrive that can't be worked through. And so this is Jay's opinion, that right now the percentage of a project happening is probably lower than it is going to happen just because of due diligence. There's a lot of stuff in play. But if we can make it all come together, this will be a great, great project. But please continue to stay involved, whether I like what you have to say or whether I don't like what you have to say. It is vital for the city that you folks be involved, because it's not just our city. I mean, we live here, but y'all live here too. And so that's my piece of information. And anybody who wants any information, call me, email me, whatever. I've had 2 emails on the Victor project, so.
Thank you, sir. Others?
Yeah, I agree with you, Jay, wholeheartedly on a lot of things you said. This what we're considering tonight, it brings me down memory lane, and it's funny that we called it Big Turner growing up because Little Turner, Big Turner, and we at the school I was at off Calvary, Calvary Christian, our soccer team practiced at that field, and every day we would run from the school to the soccer field, and there's no water, there's no bathrooms, and here we are 20 years later considering actually putting those facilities out there. I mean, it's amazing being on this side now, how much you appreciate the decisions that we're making tonight. I mean, just going back to the Victor facility itself, my kids go and play at the Victor Park. I mean, but the truth of the matter is, if you're trying to make friends for your kids, some of our parks aren't that great to go do them at. And Victor, unfortunately, that playground isn't as used as much as I would like to see be used. But nevertheless, and going back down memory lane, growing up, my father over at Cannon Center, Cannon Center used to be a basketball court. And he actually had a key to Cannon Center, and every Saturday we'd get a group of BMW guys, young kids. We would come and play basketball at the Cannon Center. He'd come open it up, and we have fun. Well, before this building was here, the council and everyone made the decision that the Cannon Center would be converted to what you see today. And we were upset about it. But this is one of those situations where you saw a means to an end. And I know this decision for Victor is a tough decision to sell an asset or sell property that the city owns. I think if we want to launch Greer into that next level and create an inclusive city that has opportunities for everyone to enjoy, these are the hard decisions we have to make. And appreciate everyone that came out tonight. But tonight is a decision solely off of what will put us, me personally, what will put Greer in a better position recreationally, and also for my kids and all my constituents in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I had just one quick comment. I'd like to just let everybody know I had a lot of pause when this initially came up. I've spent a lot of time on these fields, and I think 4 generations of our family, they've either played basketball there or played baseball there, and that's both indoor and outdoor through the years. And I grew up in Little Victor Methodist Church right there across the street, so this is one of those kind of sentimental spots for me. My grandparents still live on the Mill Hill, and so I spend a lot of time in that community and love it there. And I can assure you, I put a lot of time and energy into thinking about this project, asking a lot of questions of Andy and staff, and thank you for the feedback and for the back and forth, listening to the public, listening to council, taking all that. And I'll tell you straight up, I wouldn't support a project like this if I didn't feel like we were going to put something better on the ground. It's not just, yes, I've heard the word transition used. It is a transition to something that's going to be bigger and better. It's not just we're going to take one blacktop and make one blacktop. I'm hoping for a lot more. I'm going to challenge our staff and this council to do so much more. And I believe that's the trajectory that we're on, and I think that's where we're going. And that's in this scenario, that's why I support this project.
I went to Victor Church when the gym was built. Others? Comments?
Just by way of comment, I'd say one nugget that I'm carrying forward from this, our vote a couple weeks ago and this vote, is that we can find ways to double down and communicate better. I'm saying that from myself as an elected official. Something I've tried to do a good job of is being very accessible and very visible through various means. I think a lot of my constituents would say that, frankly, that even when I'm not able to give them that answer that they want to hear, I want to hear their feedback. I want to explain what's going on, the bigger picture, the context of where we've been, where we are, where we're going. But certainly, I hate that some people felt like this kind of came out of left field, because it didn't. It didn't. It's part of a larger process and a larger vision that we're executing on behalf of our community that's come directly from feedback from our constituents, from our residents about what they do want. I just say I'm proud as I can be of our parks and recreation facilities and staff and the programming that we offer, and we want to do better. Where green space is concerned, where active recreation is concerned, where passive recreation is concerned, and this is only one piece of us doing that. But you have my commitment that I'm going to do even a better job of continuing to solicit feedback and share the vision, not just in Parks and Recreation, but otherwise. I know, Mr. Merriman, you and I have already talked about potentially having a public information, some type of forum to be able to share the good work that we are doing with 2 different trail systems, the elements that we would like to add at Greer Golf for the non-golfers in our community, everything else we've got going on. I'm excited. I love Greer, and I'm positive about where we're going. It's not without challenges, but we're headed in a great direction, and I want that buy-in and that feedback from my constituents, from the community at large, so that you and they feel heard, and also you understand the bigger picture when there are these questions and issues that come up that feel confusing, but again, are part of the bigger mosaic that we're weaving.
Comments? Questions? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert. Yes. Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, let's move to items of new business this evening. The first and final reading of Resolution 10-2023, a resolution approving the conveyance of city property. Lieutenant Chad Richardson is with us this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. How are y'all this evening? I'm here tonight real quick to go over a quick resolution. As you know, Captain Fortenberry in the police department has recently been awarded a new position as a chief of police, so he's on borrowed time with us. One of the things at the police department that we normally do is when an officer retires, one of the things that we are always able to do is give them their sidearm as their service. Well, this is a kind of a unique situation because Captain Fortenberry has served 27 years with us. However, he's not officially retiring. He's just moving to another place to take on the role as a chief. And so we come to you tonight as we would like to be able to award him his sidearm for all of his years of service to the city here.
Comes with action required, and you have heard the explanation from Lieutenant Richardson. This comes to us for authority to transfer that weapon. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions?
I'd say in this forum, congratulations again to Captain Fortenberry.
Job well done.
Second that.
Well done, 27 years. Thank you for your service to Greer, and congratulations on your new opportunity. Fountain Inn's getting a good one.
Yes, sir. They are.
Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. First and final reading of Resolution Number 11. Thank you, Mr. Richardson. First and final reading of resolution number 11-2023. This is a resolution approving a memorandum of agreement with the South Carolina Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Department for the release of a deed restriction on the Victor Park property and other matters related thereto. Mr. Meredith.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Council, as previously mentioned, is a portion of the process by which we would begin the due diligence of the Victor property. We do need council to take action tonight on a resolution that would transfer the deed restriction from Victor to the Turner site. The initial, the property was purchased in part by funds provided by the SCPRT's RELT program, and there is a notice of limitation of use on that, effectively requiring that property to be used for recreation purposes. The Department of South Carolina Parks and Recreation and Tourism has agreed through this resolution and through a memorandum of understanding that that this resolution will memorialize that we will transfer that limitation of use to Turner, and it also requires that we use 50% of the fair market value to go towards the construction of the new facility.
Council comes as first reading. It is a resolution. You heard the explanation from the administrator. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion.
Mr. Mayor, will the deed restriction apply to the entire site at Turner?
It will.
And it just means that half of the dollars from the proceeds have to go specifically to the Turner site?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
Others? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert. Yes. Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, let's move to the first reading of ordinance number 22-2023, an ordinance to change the zoning classification of a certain property owned by 211 Arlington LLC located at 211 Arlington Road from C2 to DRD. Ms. Stahl joins us for this conversation. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Good evening. This is RZ 2304. The address is 211 Arlington Road. The existing zoning is C2 Commercial, and the request is to rezone to DRD Design Review District. Here's the aerial of the property. Here's the current zoning map. The red is C2 Commercial. The light green is RM1 Multifamily Residential. The purple in the top corner is C3 Highway Commercial, and the gold is DRD Design Review District. The future land use is traditional neighborhood. Here's a photo of the existing conditions of the site. Here's the preliminary site plan. The statement of intent describes a bed and breakfast business model, restoring the existing home as an innkeeper's home and building 6 one bedroom, 1 bath, short-term rental units. There will be some green space with social gathering areas, and 12 parking spaces will be provided, 4 parallel spaces along Moss and 8 in the site parking lot. Here's a digital rendering of the site. Here are some photos of what the rental units will look like. Once again, the request is to rezone to DRD Design Review District. The surrounding zoning is RM1 and C2. Staff recommends approval, and Planning Commission also recommended approval.
Thank you, ma'am. By show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening?
I'm over here, but I'm behind this wall.
It's kind of behind the curtain, so to speak there. Huh? You're over there moving some levers around. I'm so noted that you are here, and if there's questions, we will ask you to come to the podium, if you will, please. Okay? With that, for the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive. And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion.
Can you go back to the innkeeper's home will be constructed of, or will be finished out in
with the statement of intent?
I believe so. Infrastructure or building materials. The exterior, that's not on the statement of intent, is it, of any of these buildings?
It is not. I believe the intent is to restore it to original make. Can the applicant address? Will you come up to the microphone, please?
Yeah, the building materials is listed as original style.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
How you guys doing this evening?
Yeah, if you'll state your name and
My name is Robert Julian,
address for, as a
and I
matter of
live in
record.
Greenville, 9 Dewberry Lane, Greenville, South Carolina.
Thank you, sir.
what, all of the structures, but specifically, my question was, your intent is to restore the building that's there to its.
Yeah, the original structure, we went in there, and it used to be like a 3-unit apartment. I guess you guys are aware with the situation with it. But we went and basically gut it out somewhat, put it to its original state, because the basic structure, the bones of the skeleton of the building was fine. So we kind of revamped it, and we brought it to its original status as far as the structures. And for a while, we've held the property, tried to figure out, okay, what we're going to do with this property, and seeing what the city's doing for the improvements with the park and everything else, what you're doing on the north end and the south end. We were finding a way to monetize it where it would actually work. So the original concept is going to be a bed and breakfast, kind of a hybrid. I'm currently doing ADU units like in Travelers Rest and some other areas, and they do very well. It's more of a high-end project, and it'll probably serve as a good anchor there, but the original structure would be put into its original state, okay, structurally wise, but it will be an innkeeper's facility.
So let me be more specific. When you're finished, what is the outside going to be, the finishes be constructed of?
That's why, just to show you. Arch renditions on it. Here, I got these, and you kind of look at them.
Yes. Okay. Is that hardy board or is that?
Yeah, usually it'll be concrete on the outside. But we'll probably, in the main building, we'll probably do the horizontal to mimic but the main building, actually, the siding is actually in good shape, the original shiplap. And so we're probably going to try to preserve the original siding.
So continue to be wood?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
okay.
sorry. Where the ADU units, which will be 6, those will be very modern, and those will be a concrete type board on the outside, which is basically a Meritech and a like an
Cementitious kind of.
Yes, sir.
Others?
So you have executed similar projects elsewhere already? Is that?
Yeah, I worked with the Travelers Rest because they initiated the, they initiated the ADU unit ordinance there. I guess the Patria St. John was the original there at that time. And I would send her information from like Oregon, Colorado, exactly, some of the ordinances that were around the country at that time. So they adopted it, and they served pretty well in that area. Now, I've already completed 2 main houses with ADU. I'm doing a third, and then I got another project off of Farmview in Travelers Rest. Some of these are used for ADU units. Some of them are just cottages that people use for relatives, examples, and young and old, basically. But this is strictly a short-term type rental. It's more of a upgraded, where the innkeeper will be more of an estate type, and we're going to be using the railroad theme, pretty much. We're going to probably go to your historic archives and use some of that stuff. So we'll kind of embrace the railroad, so to speak. You what? Yeah, and then you'll see some pictures of the actual units that we have, and it might be varied some colors on there. But it's more of a park-like atmosphere, kind of mimic what you guys are doing. We'll have like a giant bocce ball court, water features, giant oversized Jenga sets. But it's more of a Ross Chapman type design where it's more of a community, garden areas, et cetera, et cetera. We'll probably have a wrought iron fence around it, a sidewalk system that'll bring you right to Arlington. And that sidewalk, of course, you're only about 5-10 minutes walk to your park down there. We'll probably have bike racks with bikes, so people, when they come in, guests come in, they could ride the bikes. We were talking about golf cart facilities, that if they wanted to rent a go-kart, and they could ride right down the street on there, if it's permitted, of course. We were checking into that. The venue would pretty much serve breakfast, like they'll use probably your local vendors downtown for coffees and pastries, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not sure what else to tell you about it, except the pictures will pretty much explain kind of what it's like.
It looks like a great-looking project. I just, I like to have agreements that are very specific, and not that we're all short-term here on this earth. So maybe when they're getting ready to finish, do the siding on these projects or these buildings, you're no longer here, and somebody makes the decision, well, we can save $1 or $2 if we do vinyl.
Oh, no, but that's not, you're right, no, it's not.
No, and I
Yeah.
understand, and I know that's your intent.
Yeah.
But
If I can interrupt, we can have them be more specific when they, and rewrite the statement of intent and include that specification about cementitious siding.
yes, okay, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, because there's some actual pictures, I don't know if you could
Yeah, I saw-
see that, okay.
Right,
In
yeah.
these cases, they're metal roof and the concrete siding, which basically lasts for pretty much forever. And everything's kind of upscale on the inside. All the units will have kitchens or half kitchens on there, laundry facilities, most likely will be in each unit, or we might have a common, but most likely offset of everything up for individual in each one.
It looks like a great project. Nice looking building.
Ms. Stahl, do we define short-term rentals anywhere in our ordinances?
We don't, to my knowledge. We do allow them in the city.
So I know the concept of short-term rentals, but what's your experience been with Travelers Rest? If you had a project manager that was coming to do a project at BMW and needed to be here 6 months, 9 months, is that short-term for y'all or what?
No, that's more of a long-term on there. That's more of a long-term facility. This is more of a tourist type and bringing, you could have some workers that come in for maybe a week and a half or something like that, but it's not geared for long-term 6 months or anything like that.
So will these be advertised on Airbnb or VRBO or that sort of
We
thing?
haven't set that parameters yet on there, but yeah, it would probably be like Home Away, Airbnb. It'll be more local advertisement also. A lot of it's word of mouth.
So a travel nurse calls you up and she's got a 3-month assignment in Greer, what? is
Most
that?
likely not. It's really not designed for that.
Okay.
Your intention would be to hold this type of project long-term?
Yeah, I mean, that's the intent, is to hold a long-term on there. But the guidelines, though, I mean, we have no issue with planning to give more detail on the operations on there. Okay, this facility not only would be geared because it's more of a high-end and with the common area involved with it, it could be used for venue, weddings also, that type of thing. Gatherings, family, birth, they might have like the weddings, people coming from out of town, also local also. Okay, so it could be monetarily wise, that's our vision on it. Not only just the short-term rentals, but also as a venue, as a social gathering place, as local and also from a distance.
Do you have a time frame in mind that you'd like for it to be ready for?
Well, once we approve from this point, we'd like to get permits all geared within a year. Get everything all through, infrastructure, engineering. He could tell you more than I. What do you think?
I mean, Nick Myers, Seaman Whiteside, 701 Easley Bridge Road. I mean, it's a 3 to 4 month permitting process. So depending on financing beyond that, we can have permits probably in 3 to 4 months. So beyond that, it's just a financing construction.
Yeah. So we figure when all together, and I don't think they have pre-cons here. So that's why we figure max will probably be about a year. You know, we also had the main structure of the main building already there, and the first thing we would do is get that thing up and running, and probably start with the infrastructure of the main building first, and then basically get the site all ready, get it padded out, and then the ADU units. The ADU units go up pretty quick.
Others?
I do have a few questions. I think this is a very interesting project, and I'll follow up after I ask you these questions to staff. So just kind of looking at the history of this site, I know originally it was on multifamily, and then I believe a concept came and we turned it to, commercial, and now we're looking at a DRD. Just kind of looking at the history of the site, could you just kind of speak to how you ended up to where we are today than what we approved prior?
Hope and change, basically. When we bought the property, it was difficult to monetize it at that point in time. I take properties and I'm not afraid to hold them for several years. In this case, a little longer than normal. The timing wasn't ready for it. But we saw what the city of Greer is doing with expansion in the park, like I said, to the south and the north, which you guys were just discussing earlier. And now it seems like the timing's good for it. And I think it'll be a good anchor down that road. And hopefully with that anchor in there, it's $1 million plus project on there. It's not compared with some of the other stuff you're doing, but it's a good spot. It's close enough to the downtown where we could think we can make it work.
So for this ADU, and this is for staff, is this something new to Greer, or I can't think of any other
I would
concepts?
say so. There's not really anything else like it currently.
From a commitment level, what documents is actually enforceable? I mean, is these pictures enforceable? Or the statement of
So
intent
the
is only?
statement of intent would be primarily what we are looking at. We would also maybe use some of these elevations for reference, specifically during plan review, which is when we review the architecture. But we can amend the statement of intent to be more specific about the exterior finishings before we bring it back for second reading.
Okay. And now the parking number, is that something that was negotiated, or they just pitched that number? Because I am concerned about the parking too.
Yes, we did as well. We did discuss it, and we agreed to it primarily because the use is not a traditional single-family sort of use. It's more like an Airbnb, so these are people visiting for a short amount of time. They're not staying long-term. So, we were willing to flex a little bit based on the location and the use.
And this is just my preference. I know I would feel a lot more comfortable if we could kind of, like Jay was saying, hone in on some of those materials, especially with some of the history. Like I said, it went from multifamily to commercial to what it is now. I don't like that ambiguity of some of the details that could change. And
Do you mean the
just
use?
looking, say again?
Like the use of it? Like
Even the use of it, even
short-term
if
to
we could
long-term?
dial that in,
So the statement of intent, it's very good for being specific about materials and things like that. But in terms of business operation, sometimes it's helpful to be a little less specific because then the business owner can have more latitude as markets change. It's very difficult for us to enforce some of those things like hours of operations and things like that. That's why we don't typically get into the nitty-gritty. This is primarily for use, general use, rather than the specifics.
I think that's a valid point, because one of the things that we discussed earlier tonight was what was going to take place, and I think there's some misconception sometimes that the city decides what's going to be where and that sort of thing, and we do to an extent through the planning process and through the permitting process, but it's actually the market that determines what's going to take place there. And so if they're willing to put the risk in and the money in, then they need to be able to make decisions in that regard. And I think that's one of the things sometimes that we get a bad rap on is, why did you build apartments? Or the city is building apartments. I've seen that written places, the city's building apartments somewhere. That's a market issue altogether. Others? Comments, questions?
I look forward to seeing the development come to fruition. It looks like a really interesting project, and I think one that's needed. We have a lot of folks coming to our community that are from out of town. They need alternatives to hotels and places to put their families, and like you said, to host events. And I really hope you're successful with this. And I do like the latitude that our department provides in giving you the flexibility, because you may, short-term rentals may be the thing now, but 5 years down the road, it may be the nurse that wants to live there for 3 months or whatever, and it gives you a little bit of flexibility, and you can shift if needed.
Yeah, I agree with you. The flexibility is the reason why this is a unique project, and it's more of a hybrid. It's not your traditional bed and breakfast, so to speak, because you don't have actually rental units in the main building. These are like outside. So yeah, the flexibility is helpful on there. But like I said, with the projects I've done, I've done smaller projects, multi-million-dollar projects, but for this to work, it has to be done right. It has to be done a little more upper scale, and to bring the parties in. And when you're dealing with ADU units specifically, it's a lot of repeat business and a lot of word of mouth. And you get rankings, and I'm sure so many people are already familiar with that. And once you have a good innkeeper and it's set up properly markedly, word spreads out, okay, hey, Greer's a good place to go, this is a great place to stay, and then that's how it usually funnels out. And monetarily it works out very well. Which really makes me really like this particular project, because the way we'll address all the green space is I'll have some latitude for venues at the same time on this project. Which helps monetize the project, helps keep the project up, the upkeep of the project. Because, between when you run even at a 70% occupancy or even a 65% occupancy on the ADU units at like an average of 2.25 per days per unit, it still monetizes and still works out.
Council, any further questions of the gentlemen that are with us this evening? Thank you for the information. Very helpful for our discussion. Thank you. Ms. Stahl, any additional information from from staff in this regard?
I do not.
Thank you. Council, further questions? Comments? Discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Earwood,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Let's move to the last item on the agenda this evening, the Suba Road Fire Station project. The city has received qualifications for construction manager at-risk services for a new fire station to be located on Suba Road. Reeves Young was selected as the contractor for this project. Funding for this project comes from money received from the American Rescue Plan Act. Design is now complete, and staff requests that the guaranteed maximum price of $7,946,654 be approved by council. John Guggenhauer, our facilities and project manager, joins us this evening for this discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. And I pretty much reiterate what the mayor just said. In the spirit of all the fund growth and everything that's happening in the city of Greer, in May of last year, the staff and administration solicited the architectural services for the fire department out there at Super Road. Not long after that, we sent out the request for qualifications to Reeves Young, and we did select them as our construction manager for that project. And now a year later, after a considerable amount of effort, we've reached the maximum guaranteed price for this project, not to exceed, in that amount that the mayor just mentioned, $7,946,654. Cost is funded through the American Rescue Plan Act, and staff is asking council for your approval to proceed.
Thank you, sir. Action required comes with a recommendation from staff. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
No motion.
And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion.
The only thing I would ask is that, I don't like this term, but fireman proof is one of the things you hear when you put something to be used by a fire department. And it's not because that they're just a bunch of, Neanderthals there, but that building is lived in, operated in 24/7. And I would ask that considerable detail be made and placed on the way the structure is built. If there are walls with finishes with gypboard, that needs to be looked at to see if you can go with masonry block or, because in my example, and we talked about this before, is go to our headquarters station. It was built in the 70s. It's not a lot of flash, but it is durable. It's all masonry. And anyway, that's my suggestion, and because in the long term, it will save money.
And I know we looked at that, Mr. Earwood, and that was one of the concerns, a big concern, because of course, the fireman brought that up, that they are hard on a building. And I believe there is a recommendation, well, it's a qualifier. One of the criteria for this was, I think, up to 4 foot. It's what they call hardened gyp, which I'm not sure exactly what that is, but that is in all the public areas and heading back up to 4 foot. So a lot of those thoughts were in that process, and we were trying to attack it thinking along the same lines. But there may have been more that can be done, but then we started value engineering, and you know how that goes. We tried to not take away from that durability, but get everything, you know how, once you're trying to get that whole package, you start seeing what, originally this was a 3-bay. We cut it down to 2-bay, there was just a lot of.
Because that's what we need.
So.
Others?
Mr. Merriman, how much of the ARPA funds have we used so far? I know it's not just this project specifically.
I'm going to ballpark it here, but if you'll recall of the little over $16 million we received through the American Rescue Plan Act, 10 million of that was unrestricted. This part of that funding is coming out of the unrestricted. We have utilized some of the funding out of the restricted portion, that $6.6 million or so that was restricted under ARPA to purchase property and to begin the work for Greer Relief. So there is some of that some of that funding has been used out of both pots, but I can get you a exact number soon.
Ballpark works.
Yep.
Others? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Earwood,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Miss Albert. Yes. Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we have no stated items in executive session. Stand adjourned.